Sonali, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. And to begin with, we would start with your leadership journey. We would like to know, was there a moment in your career where sharing your personal story, maybe a challenge, failure, or lesson that helped you and your team grow stronger?
Most of the time it's on a daily basis, but the most important one was when when a leader becomes very vulnerable when they don't want to. And for me that was, I think, post pandemic. I mean, I think it was during pandemic, which comes very much in my mind. I think all of us, when we all went into pandemic, most of the leaders, I'm sure, when we went into 2020, we thought we could manage it, control the outcomes and keep our teams steady and, hold everything together. But the truth was that I was kind of recalibrating myself and trying to, hold space for others. And there was a point in 21 when, for a brief time when everything just opened, and we had a very critical and very important campaign that had just come out, and we were losing momentum on that. And I could see that my team was exhausted, and I could see that everything was running on fumes. And it was on that brief period where we all actually could meet in office. And I remember sitting down with them, and I don't think I've ever said this before, but I said that, guys, I don't have all the answers. I really don't know what is happening. And I'm figuring, this out as well. And at that time, I could see, that some change just happened in the room, because when you take the pressure of being perfect, when that pressure of perfection is off the table, people kind of relaxed, and, you actually see that they think better when there is no expectations. And yes, for me, that period taught me that I can be vulnerable. It's a genuine vulnerability, and it has a purpose, and it's not a weakness. And I actually thought that it was a courageous form of leadership. So yeah, that comes to my mind.
Fabulous. I think COVID times were the most critical times, and to keep the momentum with your own self and the team was a very difficult time for everyone as leaders. I think a lot of them have faced that, and I can totally resonate to your journey as well. So, how did this leadership role in your career begin, and how prepared were you? If I ask you.
Prepared, not as much as I thought I was. I have I love marketing, okay, and I had the marketing instincts, and I knew what I had to do or what I can do, but nobody really tells you that the hardest part of leading is not work, it's people, including yourself. So my early leadership was very outcome driven. I could, say that I was more focused on delivering the results and building my brand and, proving that I belonged in the room. And I did. But somewhere along the way, I realized that I was leading from a place of proving and, rather than from a place of purpose. And that shift, it happened gradually. It's not, it was very gradual. And then as I took on a larger, mandate, when I was, looking at global roles, and I was with cross-functional teams, and I started to see that the leaders, they, the ones who truly move the needle are the ones that don't have all the answers, but they are the ones who ask the right question and create a condition, for their people to rise. And uh, for me, like, my style of leadership has always been very democratic, but I have evolved it into being more empowering. I think so. That's my journey, I would say. But no, I was never prepared. I think I'm still learning, I guess.
Yes, it's not always a one way thing, right? It's not a journey which is very straightforward. I think a lot of it shapes you as a person as well. And
True.
the point that you mentioned, the pressure to prove. had, eventually went off, and it was more about your passion. So I think that drives it further, right? So also, Sonali, in organizations, usually it is misunderstood, like giving. The concept of giving is sometimes misunderstood as slowing down your own personal growth. So, from your experience, how has mentoring, coaching, or advocating for others actually, accelerated your own leadership journey? That's what I would like to know.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I have not yet experienced that. And if it exists, I think it's a myth in a corporate culture that if you invest in others, you are somehow slowing yourself down, or something like that. But for me, I think the opposite has been true. Every time I've mentored someone, whether within my organization, my own team, even outside my team, or even outside my company, and I've sat with them, and listened to what they have to say, their problems, or anything, and help them see their own blind spot, or advocate for them in a room where they weren't in, basically. And I think, learned myself. I have walked away with clarity. I know what kind of a leader I am and what I want to be. So I think when you invest in people genuinely without expecting anything in return, you're building a culture of trust. And for me, trust is everything. And it what makes people support you, not because they have to, but because they want to. And I think that's very important wherever you go. Yeah.
Absolutely. And having a mentor or leader who can actually help you balance your personal as well as professional life is very important. And a true leader, like, you just mentioned, you have to hear out to people, because we are ultimately, working with humans. So it is really important to understand those highs and lows in their, maybe it could be a personal thing or a professional thing. That person to lead and to direct is to have that kind of mentorship is very important. That's what I feel. Yeah. So Nali, also women leaders, often carry the additional responsibility of representation. How can women leaders use their stories to create pathways for others, without feeling the pressure to be perfect? And you just mentioned that point, but how do you get that pressure off?
This is very close to my heart. Okay, I mean, this is something which I really um, I have gone through this, and I really feel I need to say something. As a woman in a senior role, I always felt that I have to be twice as prepared, twice as certain, and half as emotional. Okay. And I'm sure this must have been felt by numerous other women leaders, and I'm not alone in feeling that. What I've come to understand, and what I want to probably tell younger women especially, is that the pressure to be the perfect woman leader in itself is a problem,
True.
because it keeps us curating our stories rather than telling them. And when we share only our highlight reels, our promotions, our wins, tidy narratives, we inadvertently make our journey look frictionless. And that's not true. I'm sure you must be facing that yourself. And the women coming up behind us probably think that, oh, this is too hard for me, and maybe I'm not cut for it. And I feel that that is giving them a very loose straw. There are times when I haven't been sure. There are times when I've got it wrong, and I've had to course correct. But admitting it, which I'm admitting here right now, I used to never. For me, admitting that was showing weakness. But I think admitting and sharing doesn't make you vulnerable or weak. I think it makes you just more human, and they open doors. They make you look real, and real is relatable. And I think relatable creates that connection, and the connection creates community. So I don't think that you have to be perfect to be a role model. I think you should just to be honest.
Yes.
That's my honest take on that.
Absolutely, Sonali. I think we have all been through that. And, like you just mentioned, to empower women, I think a woman should also, talk about her real struggle and her real journeys. And that's how women, can relate to each other. And then it sounds more real and, more achievable, right? Otherwise, it's just a term or a thing or pressure to be perfect. It always sits on your mind that way.
True, true.
Right. So now, talking about the organizational culture, according to you, what can companies do to encourage women and all employees to share their stories or will speak up and support each other? What do you think?
I think that's extremely important, because culture is built in that small moments. It's not the big ones. It's not something that you have it as a rule, right? Companies invest in diversity and inclusion through campaigns, women day events, and leadership programs, and those matter. But the real work happens in the day to day, in whether the manager is listening, without interrupting, and whether a junior voice gets credit for the idea that she has raised in a meeting, and whether a leadership shares their own failures. Because in a town hall, if a leader is accepting that, it makes it safe for others to do the same. Because if somebody from that position is doing it, you feel far more confident. And if I have to name three things that an organization should do concretely, first is create rituals of recognition.
Yeah.
Not just for outcomes, but for effort, for courage, for speaking up. When you celebrate an act of sharing, it should not just be about result. You signal that stories also matter. So, that's very important. The second thing is, I would like to train managers to be better listeners. I mean, we all say, oh, we have to, listen, and you need to learn how to listen, but we don't encourage that as well. And uh, I don't think people need coaches or fixers. They need listeners. There is a profound difference. And the third point would probably be that the senior leaders, need to model imperfection. So like I said, when the most powerful person in the room says, I got that wrong, or I'm still learning, it gives everyone else to just slow down, and, gives them the permission to be human. So psychological safety is not just an HR initiative. It's probably like a more leadership practice.
Absolutely. Great, points of action, I would say. I mean, ultimately, it's the people who create the culture in the organization. And a very important point that you mentioned, that managers need to listen. I think that's the most important thing, because that's how, they can, especially women, when we are coming up with so many things, going at the back and then entering an office or, getting on work. I think there are instances or moments where we need that, hand holding. And I think even if someone hears you out, that itself, is, keeps you going. That's something which is very important. So thank you so much, Sonali. I think great points you shared with us. Your perspective is very important and valuable. I'm sure our listeners are going to enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Sonali.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.